Stacy Lund Levy is our talent for the night. She is a painter extraordinaire, teacher extraordinaire, enters many, many shows and knows the systems very well. So take it away, Stacy.
Thank you. I wanted to start off with why I started entering shows, and primarily it was because of quarantine and COVID, and I had been painting a ton, and my paintings were everywhere, and they were stacking up, and I started entering shows because I thought instead of having them here, the only people that saw them were my family, and I wanted to get them out. And I also wanted to start teaching more outside of, once things opened up. That was my big goal and something I was looking forward to. So I started entering shows, and at that time it was kind of it was a win-win. You paid your entry fee. There was no requirement as to framing or shipping, which ends up being a pretty good cost depending on how many shows you enter. I also, it set a schedule for me. For every show, there is a deadline to have your art applied, accept, something to look forward to, hopefully, an accept or possibly a decline, and then potentially a reception, and then the pickup date. So it sets a schedule. And if you're working in your studio by yourself all the time instead of being in an office, it's a good thing to have. It's a goal setting thing, and sort of when Monday is and when Friday is. So that's why I started. And then post quarantine ended, all those reasons still ring true. It's better to have your paintings out in the world and for people to see them than to have them one of my students puts them under his bed, so stacks them up and sticks them under his bed. So I'm going to start off with a short presentation, and I'm going to share my screen. In 1 second. Okay, I'm going to minimize this. So where to start? Decide, depending on where you are. If you've never entered a show, a lot of this is very beginner, what I'm going to go over with. There are local art council shows. There are international shows. There are regional shows, international shows, juried shows, non-juried shows, online shows, and in-person shows. So it depends on where you want to start. And here are just a few of the ones that are basically in our area. If you're not interested in shipping, then pick something around you. Near me is the Carroll County Arts Center. They have shows there. If you're in Annapolis area, Maryland Federation of Art is a wonderful place to show. And it's got a small gallery. They also have online shows. So Google on call for entry watercolor, and you're going to get a long list of what's potentially available. One of my favorite quotes is, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, it's so exciting. You got into the show. I would never get into the show." And I answer back, "Well, did you apply for the show?" And the answer is no. So you got to play to win. And, you're not going to, other than maybe taking a ding to your self-esteem, you're not really losing anything except for the $25 entry fee. If you have your paintings all ready and you're pushing for a deadline, paint because you love to paint. Don't paint because you're trying to get into a show. If you look at this screen, this is just the top of, the top of the pile of what I found. This year was 156 consecutive international exhibitions at the American Watercolor Society. I have total confidence that next year will be the 157th international exhibition of the American Watercolor Society. And if you miss that one, then you can go on to the next year. If you look at these are just a few. There's at least one in every single state, and some states have 4 or 5. So on top of all the art centers and the smaller arts councils. All right, decisions. This realm of entering shows is kind of a nebulous area. So you have to decide what type of show you want, whether you want to drive it there and drop it off, whether you want to invest the money in a shipping box to ship it somewhere and pay for the fees of handling and shipping, Once it's out of your hands and in the hands of the juror, as you can see, this is one of the BWS Mid-Atlantic covers. Everybody views art in a different way. So one juror could get a body of 200 paintings, and that same body of 200 paintings could go to a different juror, and they could pick completely different selections to build out the show. So if you're going to jump into this, build up a thick skin, realize the reasons that your painting might not have been accepted or why it had been accepted. It has nothing to do, it's not always that, oh, my painting was bad, or I need to work harder, or I need to be more, put more time into this. It could be that you painted cats and the juror hates cats, and for some reason they just decided they couldn't put a cat in the show. One of the ways to get into a show is standing out. And those same 200 paintings, say 30 people put in a painting of a flamingo. Now, they're not going to put 30 flamingos into the show because the juror's job is to put up a concise body of work that shows a range of paintings. So they want some abstracts, they want some representational stuff, some photorealism, maybe some black and white, and they want a variety of subjects to make it a really good show. If you have 50 flamingos and 4 trucks and, I don't know, 50 portraits, it might be interesting, but probably not as much. So if you're going to paint a flamingo, it better be the most interesting flamingo that anybody has ever seen. All right, the selection process. Years ago, it was easy, I guess, depending on how far back you're going. And if you had a car or a horse-drawn wagon, but you could just take your painting to the place that was going to show. They would look through all the paintings. The ones that were not accepted were sent home. The rest of them were hung. Now, if you're an artist, basically it's a huge job. You're painting your painting, having it framed or framing it yourself. And then there's a variety of technical skills that you have to master or pay somebody else to do or have a friend do. On top of that, so that makes you have more than one job. You're not just an artist anymore. You have to have technical support. And then also put place yourself in the juror's seat. So if you're the juror for the show that's on this screen, they would have to go through all of those paintings. So the last BWS show, I think, had close to 400 or 500 entries. So that juror has to sit in front of the computer and flip through all of those entries. And that's quite a lot of time involved. And you're going to sit watching this for maybe an hour or so, and you might feel like you're going to pass out. Think about doing that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is there are limitations on shows. So if it's a physical building, they might be able to take 100 paintings. They might get 600 entries. So to narrow down and down and down and down is a tough job for the juror. And I have from a very reliable source that at American Watercolor Society, the jurors sit down, they put the paintings up, and they view them for 5 seconds. And then they go on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So you have 5 seconds to wow the judge and think, that's a good painting. That's what I want in this show. And when I first heard that, I thought that was awful. And then I thought about it. If you scroll through Instagram or Facebook or any social media or even the news, you might give it 1 second before you flip past it. So think about that when you're putting your entries in. If you have 5 paintings you're choosing from, pick the one that's going to jump right out. Never put 10 pounds of mud in a 5-pound sack. And that's another one of my favorite sayings. So I guess in Paris in the 1700s, the ceilings were higher and it was very vogue to have all those paintings crammed in there. It's not like that now. A good look is spread out. You can view one painting and then the next. They're not stacked up to the ceiling. So there is a limit. Like I said, if you have 600 entries and only 100 get in, think about whether you were the 101st painting that wasn't accepted. The painting is probably stunning. There's probably 100 that are stunning that get in, 100 that are stunning that don't get in, and then more that are, okay, but don't quite cut it. So put yourself, I don't know if you can see this under the bar. Suppose you're the juror and you've ranked all the paintings and you've picked 99 out of 100, and you can put one more in. And these are the last two. They have the same numerical rating. That's how you judge the system. Which one would you pick? And so think about it. Even in the realm of watercolor, there's style differences, palette differences, subject differences. They could be more impressionistic, more representational, photorealism, abstract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if these two paintings were up and the theme of the show was like Americana or American landscapes, maybe the car gets in. If the show is more toward flora and fauna or animals, or it's in a garden, the frogs might get in. So there's a lot of, think about the show you're entering and think about what would be the best type of painting to put in. So that's one thing. All right, well, and once you've decided all that, then your job is also to be a photographer. If you're looking at your photo, you've shot your photo, you think you know what you're doing, you pull it up and you look at it and you think, it looks like it's good enough. If you're asking yourself that question or thinking about that, the answer is no, it's not good enough. This has everything wrong with it. So reflections up here, there's the this bouncy line here is the shadow. You can see the difference in the frame, in the matte, white up here, dark down here, reflection, what's on the wall. You can try to shoot through glass. I can tell you 100% certainly you're not going to get away with it. So I've done this before where I didn't take a good picture. I had it framed. Take my advice, take it out of the frame and shoot the photo. And a lot of times when a show comes through, depending on the level that you're going for, if it's an international show, the photographic quality is really, really good. So if you shot it through the glass, it's going to be a glaring difference between your entry and the rest of them. Presentation matters. And I made this slide to be awful. Drawing colors, it's too big. You know, the typefaces are wrong. Just to give you the idea, presentation really matters. You could be the best painter in the world. If you send in a really poorly photographed image, it's going to show. And it's going to get tossed immediately. Your 5 seconds are going to be 1 second and it's going to be gone. In or out of focus. Make sure with cell phones, I have put every single entry I've ever done has been shot on my cell phone. And I know a lot of people will poo-poo that idea and say you need a really high quality camera. I have one and I use it for outside and to shoot references because it has a nice zoom on it. I have never once used it to photograph a painting. And so far it's worked out fine for me. I'm not sure what else to say about that. And I'm going to demo a little bit later how to shoot a photo on your phone and to edit it, basically white balance, and then use it to import into your computer. So this is, again, photographing through glass. This has a mat around it. You never want to show the mat or the frame because you shouldn't be shooting it through the frame anyway. Even if I crop this, there's a hot spot right here with the light, and that's not good. Over here is the reflection of a ceiling fan and a painting in the background. Another thing to look at is as you photograph, make sure that you don't have an edge. This is the paper that was behind the photo. Make sure everything is a clean edge all the way around. Whites. So unless you're using bright white watercolor paper, you need to white balance, which means pull the whites back. So you don't want to, there's a trick for this and I'll show it to you once I go through the slides. You want your whites to be white because this color here of white and this are two completely different things, meaning that this color yellow has this same film over top and it goes more toward an ochre. This left-hand side is going to show up a lot better presentation-wise when it's up on the screen. It's got more pop, and make sure you balance your whites. Resizing. This is like the biggest problem for a lot of people when it comes to digital processing. And we're going to go through that in the end as well. Every single show that I've entered has they're labeled different ways, but most of them are how to prepare your image for application. So you need to know how many pixels. It's always in the instructions. What the overall size is. Once you resize your image, it's going to be a certain amount of memory take up. Megabytes, usually 5 megabytes is the limit that you can go to. If they give you a pixel range and you're in that pixel range, mathematically it's going to come out below that number of 5 and you should be fine. Make sure that when you read through the instructions, most images, the physical painting has to be bigger than 10 inches on the shortest side, meaning 10 by 10 is okay, 10 by 12 is okay, 12 by 14 is okay, it just has to be bigger than 10. And that's, you know, there are shows that are miniatures that are smaller than that. But then when it comes to your digital image, usually it's measured in pixels and it's usually 1200 or 1250 on the shortest side, making so that you have a range of where you're going to set, how you're going to set your stuff up. The next part is about prepping your images. So if you go onto the BWS website and you go under public events and go down preparing digital images, here are instructions on preparing images. They're all written out. And I'm going to show you another site that does this as well. The instructions are on almost every society site about how you can upload your images, rename your images, size your images, and their videos. And here's a video right here. So check out the BWS website. My other favorite, and I think this is probably one of the best instructional ones, is the Delaware Watercolor Society. Somebody took the time, if you go under documents and down to resizing photos.
Stacy, there's a couple questions.
Okay.
One of them is that someone is not sure the translation of inches to pixels. And I guess, you know, for me, who doesn't understand it either, I just do whatever the prospectus says, and I don't understand how it's moving it back and forth, but it works. I don't know if you have a better answer than that.
I do have a better answer than that. I'm going to show you on my phone in a resizing thing or a resizing app about every time you measure something, dots per inch. So dots per inch is how many little tiny dots, pixels, are in an inch. So you can have 300 in an inch, 72 an inch, 50 in an inch. Obviously, if you have 300 little dots in an inch and every inch has those 300 dots, not only will it's packed with information, your resolution is going to be significantly higher, and it's high enough to be printed like in a catalog. And if you go down to 72 dots per inch and you add up 72, you know, along 10 inches, 10 times 72, that's how many dots across. It's going to be lower resolution. So when you resize an image, and I'll show you, there's a bunch of different ones. I'm going to use Preview on a Mac. And you could use Microsoft Paint. You can use, there's multitudes of different, there's apps on your phone that you can use. It'll have a drop-down menu. So when you put your painting in, or, you know, the image of your painting, it'll say like 8 by 10 inches. Over the inch side, this is kind of a standard computer thing. If you click on inch and look down, you'll be able to convert that to centimeters, pixels. I'm not really sure some of the other measurements, but if you just drag down to pixels, it automatically does the math for you. So if you set your resizer on pixels as your measurement, and it'll tell you how many, then you can just change. If your instructions say 1200 pixels per, you know, for the side, for one side, you type in 1200, and it should automatically change. If you put 1200 on the length, it'll automatically mathematically change the length. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Their length.
There's another question about, and I don't know whether you're going to address this later, about lighting, the best kind of lighting to use when you are photographing your painting.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second.
Okay.
I have, in my studio, I use daylight bulbs in the ceiling. You can get those for a regular table lamp and for, like, you know, tubes. And they're bluer. They're not as yellow as a regular light. So I use those. And when I photograph something, I have a room that has a ceiling light and a just a regular window. So in the middle of the day, if it's a bright day, I use both of those, and then I have my overhead. And that usually works. I have friends that swear by going out on a cloudy day. Of course, you have to wait for a cloudy day, walk out on a cloudy day because it's even light and there's no bright sun. But I'm going to pull this over. I bought these, pull this down, these on Amazon. They were very cheap. It's a photographic for inside of a box, like there's like a little shadow box or a light box, and 2 of these, and it was incredibly cheap. So if you look on Amazon, I don't even think it's a Polaroid is the brand. And they're, you can change the angle and the height and everything. They're mostly for a desktop. I do use these if it's, if I'm shooting something at night or, but usually it's just daylight. So does that answer your question? I'm probably bucking the system. Anybody who's actually a photographer is probably having a nervous breakdown right now. But I've had very good luck of getting in shows. And like I said, I use standard lighting, what I have, and my phone.
And there's one other question about when you're taking photos of something that you're using rough paper. Is there a way to avoid I guess it's not really pixelation as much as kind of the graininess of it?
If you're using super rough paper, you might see the grain, but as long as your light source is down, like you're not getting a raking light across, I really haven't had a whole lot of problem with that. And because you're going to be shooting, if you shoot with a phone, the images that come out, the way I have it set up, is 72 DPI, which is, I think, as your phone comes, that's the way, it's set up that way. And it's like 45, the actual image on your screen is like 45 inches by 45 inches or something like that. When you compress that down, because these images can only be 1200 pixels apart or width or slightly higher to fit under that 5 megabyte size, it shrinks your painting down, and you shouldn't have a problem with that. I don't know who the person is. Did they have a problem with it?
I guess so.
If they can type back in and ask. But it shouldn't be, and especially a lot of people who use rough paper are doing landscapes, and it should kind of blend in with the painting. I mean, I use cold press and sometimes rough, but I do use cold press arches, and it does have it has a tooth to it if you've used it.
And so I guess you're saying also that you should be kind of standing over your painting, not shooting it at an angle.
Definitely, yes.
To also skew it a bit.
Yeah, and I will, once I do my phone, I'm hoping I can see it, because with the way this is sharing, I can't see exactly what I'm doing, but we'll try. Yes, don't have if your painting is here, don't put your light source raking, angled like that. Have either 2, one here, high source, you know what I mean? Instead of like down here shooting across.
Right. And your camera should also be on top.
Yes, so once we get to that, this is the plane of your camera, and this is the plane of your painting, they should be as if flat like this, lift it straight up. Once you twist it this way, it's going to go trapezoidal to the side.
Right.
Same thing that way, same thing this way. And on your phone and on Photoshop and some other applications, you can adjust that. I'm going to show you how to adjust that. But if it turns out that this is flat, then you tip it down, then you tip it this way. And so you've got kind of this weird triangular thing going on both sides. That's when you have a problem. You should always try to get the best. Like if you're shooting, you should shoot like 5 or 6 and try to get it as steady as you can. I either stand over it if it's a small painting and I can adjust and make it work. But I think the best way to do it is either put it up on the wall or put it vertical and use a tripod. There are clasps that can hold your phone as a, like a clamp almost, so that everything is still and you can adjust it and keep it steady. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I think that was very helpful.
Okay. All right, I am going to share my screen again. Okay, this is my phone screen. And the first, as you can see, this is my phone screen. Put that down for 1 second. I am going to shoot a picture going to take the camera, the bottom, as you can see right there. And here's a donkey. So I'm holding this over. I wouldn't normally do it this way because my hand is going to jiggle, and especially since I'm sharing my screen using my mouse and the camera at the same time, this might make somebody a little motion sick. This has a kind of a white background and kind of white snow. And if I just shot this and white balanced for either this or this, it would be a problem. This underneath is a pure white piece of matte board. So if I shoot my painting, I can adjust the white of this matte board to pure white, and that way my colors should be correct. Now what I'm going to do, can you see me as well or just my phone?
We can see both of you.
Okay, so I'm going to try to do this so you can see this. My phone is flat with the surface of this table. If I tip it this way, whoops, this is going to be tricky. See how trapezoidal that gets? The left side is big, the right side is small. If I flip it this way, do you feel like you're on a boat yet? Same thing. So point being, keep it as even as you can. This distance should be the same as this distance, and that's how you can line it up. The edge of your phone right here is your phone's square, right? So this happens to be an actual square painting. Make sure your parallels are the same. So if I tip the end down, let's get this in here. The bottom ends up being bigger than the top. If I do it that way, you get another trapezoid, right? So I'm going to purposely skew this a little bit so that I can show you how to fix it. What you don't want to have is, let me see if I can get it really bad, where like that, where it looks like it's been pulled point to point, because that's very hard to correct in software. I mean, you can do it, but you don't want to distort. So let's get this over the top. And I'm going to leave it a little bit gray. I'm not going to put an extra light on it. And I'm going to snap a photo. Okay.
Stacy, are you going to show how to white balance?
Yep.
Okay.
So here's here's my photo at the bottom right here. I'm going to click on that, and there it is. The only screen you're not going to be able to see is this. You won't be able to see the controls, and all I'm doing is at the bottom there's an edit button. And for most phones, you're going to have an edit button. Depending on what kind of phone you have is going to depend which controls you have. So one of the most universal ones is this. This sign on pretty much any program is cropping, and also adjustment. So you can spin it, flip it sideways, backwards, whatever. This one is brightness, contrast, saturation, tons of stuff. So the first thing I do, because I've shot a good portion of my keyboard here, doesn't really matter, but I'm going to hit the edit button. And every time you hit an edit button, which it's not doing, there we go, we'll bring up handles, crop buttons. It's got the corners and one from the top. So, and because I have to do this on my phone, not on the screen, I'm going to pull that down. I'm going to leave, and I'm going to hit done. Just so that you can see, I have only the map board in there and my painting. I'm going to hit edit again. And I cut that out and put it back on, because if you look down here, anything you do to a photo, you can revert back. So if I hit revert, whoops, on my phone, revert to original, it's going to go right back to that first painting that, the first shot that I took. Edit, crop, and pull this, whoops, sorry, straight down. Done. All right, so my white is no longer, it's not white. If you look at this, you can clearly tell it's not white. Edit. This first button right here has got multiple different settings on it. And you can, play with the phone later so that you can figure out, and you can test all these. There's no harm. Take a picture of your foot and then do this. So I'm going to push this over. This is exposure. So this is one of, and it's like exposure on a camera, because it is exposure on a camera. There's a slider bar down here. These are the symbols of what it's going to do, what you're going to move. You have to put your finger down here on this ledge right here. So I'm going to put you can't see it because I have to do this on my phone, not on the screen. If I push it overexposed.
We can see what's happening. And the.
Yeah, but you can't see my finger where it
No,
is. And if you
no.
put your finger up here, it's not going to do anything. You have to have it actually on this bar.
Okay.
So totally overexposed, totally underexposed. And there's a pretty wide range of what's going on here. So if I bring this up to white, which is on here like 33, that I have my painting in front of me. It's pretty close to my painting. Done. So I'm back up to, and I didn't have a light on this. I was more careful if I was shooting this for a show to make sure it was even light. So if I put it in front of a window, not directly in the sunlight, but in an even light, or if I set up lights on either side or a couple lights around, you have to kind of play with it in your own house, because unless you have professional photographic equipment, you know, it is what it is. Back to the, and still there's a revert here. You can decide whether you want to put it back, you're not happy with it, and see what it looked like before. There are a ton of different things. Exposure, brilliance. I'll show you this. Well, this one's not going to do too much. And you can always bring it back to 0. Highlights, this will only adjust the highlights. So, and on contrast, brightness, black point, there's everything you can imagine right there. And then I'm going to go back to crop because I want the paper behind it gone. There are 3 buttons. This is a really powerful one. This is a horizontal. So if you have, we have an even, like a line right here. This looks pretty parallel to me. If I play with this button, it's going to go off center. Put it back at 0, because that's pretty, it's pretty normal. That's pretty, we did a good job with that. This one, you can see by the painting, if this matches my painting, smaller at the top, bigger at the bottom, same structure here. So we'll move that over. You just tap on it and it moves over. And I'm going to move this, and you can see the grid come up. So I can really distort it or bring it back, and my eye, and I'm putting my finger on my phone because I can move the picture around just like you would when you take a picture. Make sure that you're not making the top bigger than the bottom. I'm going to leave this, like every time I let go of this, it's gonna, I don't know if I can hold this and do it at the same time, but you can see these grid lines. You have a line right here of the edge of your painting. Try to get the line of the end of your painting to line up with the grid line, and then you know you're parallel. And this is pretty good. It's not, you know, it's not bad for me sitting here with 2 hands not doing the same thing. I'm going to take my handles and move it up to the top, move it to the bottom, side, side. And my suggestion would be swing it slightly into the painting because you don't want that white border around. I'm going to hit done on my phone. And there's your painting. So to me, the color, I could put the painting up. Color's pretty close. I don't know what that's going to do with the screen, but the color's pretty close to my original painting. And you could tweak that until it's almost perfect. The other thing I wanted to show you is somebody sent their image in upside down and they couldn't figure out how to make that work. These 2 things up here, you can spin this until this donkey throws up. So that way you can, and usually on the prospectus, it'll say, please have your image cropped and in the right orientation. And this one will flip this right here. And if I were to hit revert, it would go back to that original and you can start all over again. I'm not going to do that. So cancel that. So I'm done. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to send my painting onto my computer because that's where I'm going to adjust the size. There's apps on your phone, and the first website I saw showed you BWS. There is an app listed there that you can change the pixel size of the image. You have your image set up here. The color is right. The white is right. You can put it directly in that app and change the pixel size. The only thing is that app is free. And if you play with it, you have to watch a whole lot of ads while it's happening. And it's a little bit confusing. If you know what you're doing, you can just sit your phone down and wait for the ad to play and then do it. If not, that can be a problem. All right, I'll share my screen for the resizing on my desktop. Oh, so this is what you're seeing here is the instructions from the website, the Delaware Watercolor Society. All of this stuff is in here. Here's one on Photoshop. If you have Photoshop, I called a bunch of people that I know are artists that have spent a lot of time entering shows, and 99% of the people use Photoshop. If you don't know Photoshop, there's no point in buying it. It's very expensive, and it's going to take a long time for you to understand how it works. So I'm going to drop this onto my screen. Here's my donkey right here. You can see right here, it's the image name, which I can rename, and then HEIC. Most prospectuses state you have to have a JPEG. JPEG is, it should say, you know, it's a JPEG when it says .jpeg. And I purposely saved this as the wrong information. When it comes up, here's all of my info about this. Down here is a button that says more. You can convert image, actual size, that's the size it is. And so you can see it's 1.4 megabyte, which is under 5 megabyte. And here's the format, JPEG. Convert to JPEG. And here's a second version of my donkey. And I am going to name it, whoops, Donkey 1. Isn't that original? So this is in my downloads folder. I can see it in my downloads folder. And that's where, so when you do save your images, pay attention to where you put them. All right, I am going to stop the Delaware Watercolor Society link is going to be on a website or on a email that you'll all get. So I'm going to click off of this, put this away. If I go and click on my donkey, my JPEG donkey, in a Mac, it all automatically comes up as preview in the preview mode. And you know it's in the preview mode because up here on the screen, it's going to say preview. And if you go over to tools, click tools, adjust size. Now this is where the pixels, inches, etc. The resolution on this has to be changed to 300 because, and the reason is because every prospectus pretty much asks you for 300. If they're going to print a catalog, they need your high resolution. That's considered high resolution for printing. Well, not for printing, but high enough resolution for printing. Because in the catalog, your painting, your 22 by 30 painting might be this big. Their width and height. Here's your measurements. So if I put this in inches, it's 7.18 inches. If I move it to pixels, it converts that mathematically as 2154 pixels. There are two buttons down here. If there's an option, always scale proportionally, meaning if this is going to be 1200 pixels, as I change that to 1200, this went automatically mathematically linked. The length and the width are going to be about the same. So because it has to be at least 1200, I'm going to change the bottom number to 1200. So the top one's a little bit bigger. Down here, you can see what size it is. Okay, so my donkey is saved over here on my screen. It's, can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, my donkey saved and it's ready to go into whatever show I want. And I try to keep a folder. If you do this a lot, you need to organize your folders so that you can find your images again. And I know people that have thousands of pictures and they're all willy-nilly. And I started that way, and you're going to waste a lot of time looking for stuff. So this is a lot of information. So I apologize if I'm overwhelming you. And honestly, as an artist, it is a third and fourth and fifth job. If you know somebody that does this for you and it only takes them a few minutes, you know, you might want to do a little barter system with them.
There's a question, Stacy, how do you download your phone image to the computer? I know with
Okay.
an iPhone and a Mac, it automatically links.
Yes. So with an iPhone and a Mac, like you said, it automatically links. Let me stop sharing. iPhone and a Mac, it automatically links. If you just, you can on an Android, attach it to an email and email it to your computer, and then click on that image and download. You could text it to yourself, download. If you're using a digital camera, you can actually put the SD card. You know, there are different ones that you can put a stick in it and then, you know, put it in the back of your computer, or cord. Does that help?
I think you've covered it all.
Yeah. I mean, this is all confusing, and you can get hung up on one step and it'll be frustrating. And I've heard a lot of stories that way. So it is pretty quick. I did put a lot of links on this email thing that you can look at and look back. Where was it? Okay. So gonna share my screen again. And I'm going to bring up Cafe. So here is the Cafe Arts site. And this is what BWS uses. This is what a ton of different shows use. And you'll see most of the shows that I've applied to are on here. Some, like National Watercolor Society, have their own site built right into their website. And when they advertise a show, it's right there. You just do upload and all is well. So this one, so it's free. Here's artist sign up. You click on artist sign up, and it's you need a password. You put in your name, a few stats, nothing really big. It's free. If you decide you want to quit it. You know, there's no harm, no foul. So I put in my username and my password. You have to prove that you're not a robot and log in. And for some reason, I find that I always have to log in twice. So one of the you know, your profile is all your stats. And one of the things, the first thing I'm going to show you is my portfolio.
Before you start, 2 questions. I think I know the answer. When you're done resizing, does it write over the original photo?
You can, well, it depends. There's a save and a save as. So like I said, if it's on your phone and you send it to your computer, you have a second copy. So you still have the one on your phone, and you can hit revert. You can hit edit and revert and go back to your old one.
Okay.
You can save there's also usually an option for save a copy, and then it would say donkey copy.jpg.
Okay, sounds good. And then Ruth Lampy has said that Microsoft also has a phone link app that you can use. So that's good to know.
If she puts that in the chat, I will add it to the the document with all the other links.
Right. That's great. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Ruth. Okay, so to start with your you created yourself a profile with your name and all your, you know, whatever, all your standard information. Then you have to build a portfolio. So I'm going to add media, and all of this is right here. You can have 100 files, image files, 6 audio. There's a ton of space on here. Add media. I'm going to choose my photo, and right here it says JPEG, must be a JPEG, under 5 megabytes, which is standard for 99% of the shows, minimum of 1200 pixels on the longest side. Same, that's pretty standard for across the board for any kind of show. You know, there's some differences. Choose file. I put my donkey on the desktop, so I'm going to click on that. Open. And you can see it shows up here. It's already uploaded. Now, this is basically an electronic portfolio of your work. Once you upload this and put your information in, you could apply this to 20 shows down the road. So I'm going to put in, I'm not going to spend, my typing is horrendous. Donkey. I've done this a ton of times, so it stores what you do. Watercolor. This is wrong, but I'm just going to pick whatever. Say it's 22 by 22. If it's paper, I don't know what you're supposed to do. Honestly, I've never had a problem with this. I just put 0. If it's like a cradled, you know, put 1 or 2 or whatever it is. Is it for sale? Most shows, you have to have it as yes, because they want to make money off of what they're putting together. So put your value in. This one's going to be $900. Put the year it was completed. The reason that's on there is because most prospectuses have artwork ages out. An average show, it can't be older than 2 years to apply. Some are 3. The Mid-Atlantic is really great because it's 5. So apply to the Mid-Atlantic. Primary discipline. You can put anything you want on here. Mine is watercolor. Art in public places. If you do huge metal sculptures, do yes. And then there's a description. That's mostly for you. I've never seen anybody read that. Sometimes if they're going to put something in a catalog, they might say, put a description in, and that'll be used in the catalog. Add to my portfolio. And then you wait a second and your image is being processed. So here we go. Here's my image. Here's all the stats on it. Edit button. If you decide you really don't like what you did, remove it. You can modify it. You can duplicate it. If you send it to a show down the road that needs it to be 1500 DPI as opposed to 12, you can duplicate it and then modify it. There's a whole ton of stuff here. So it says success. It tells you if you've done a good job and that it's right and it can be used. So apply to calls right here. Right at this moment, you could enter, there are 287 different calls on this, on Cafe. Not all of them are watercolor. They could be sculpture, mixed media, by theme. There's hundreds of different ones. There's ones for like over 50, kids ones, whatever. So I usually type in watercolor, have to hit the search button. And at this time today, there are 16 results. So these are the ones that are going to come up. And you can type something in here and search like I did, or you can set it up here, call type. You could be a person that does art fairs. You can type in art fairs. Eligibility, like paintings over 2 years, whatever. Entry fee, you only want to pay $20, so you put a limit on what shows up. So each one will have a more info and an apply and a short description of what's going on. I'm going to scroll down. And here's one, 50 or older in California. Until I get to Mid-Atlantic. Mid-Atlantic Regional Watercolor, more info. If you click more info, the entire prospectus comes up and it tells you everything you need to know. And these are, read one, it's at the Art Barn in Kentlands. Make sure you can get there or ship or willing to pay to ship there. The exhibition dates, make sure your painting can stay for that entire period because it's frowned upon. You cannot take your painting out once it's in the show. This is a good date to know. After August 2nd, this call will disappear and you won't be able to apply. Notification on September 1st. It tells you pretty much reception. You want to be able to come to the reception because that's fun. Here are the fees. One important thing to know is most shows you can put 1 or 2 entries and they'll only pick 1 entry or neither of the entries. Only one goes into the show. There are coupon codes for most shows. If you're a member, you usually get some money off. Make sure that you put the coupon code in before you hit submit because it's hard to change that up. Always gives the awards. Here are your artwork requirements. Read these very carefully before you apply. Presentation, it tells you most watercolor shows requires a white mat and variations on what the frame can look like. Notification, how to deliver your work. There's a $25 handling fee. Read through the instructions and find out how much it's going to cost you to get in. And then they very nicely put how to apply, entry, submission, process using. This is how you apply everything that I'm telling you. You can print this page and save it, which I would strongly recommend. So you decide that you want to do this because I'm sure you're going to want to do this. Apply now. Every entry has, not every, but most have some kind of rules saying that there's, sales tax. It's mostly legal stuff. This is what you're going to pay. This is what you're obligated to do. You have to hit agree or it won't move forward. A lot of the form questions are questions that are going to be for statistics for the group. Like Are you a signature member? And some of this stuff, and a lot of the stuff goes in the catalog too. So you might list up, your memberships. If you're a BWS signature member, you can put it in here. That information will probably go in the catalog, yay or nay, depending on, whatever. You can't get further than this screen unless you answer these questions. And the purpose of this is that you have to, these are requirements. If you can't meet these, you can't be in the show. So the 1 year people clicked yes, and they lived in Ohio or, Wyoming, and you have to live in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, or DC. 18 years or older, at least 10 inches. This is your painting, not the digital image. The painting has to be at least 10 inches on the small side, and it has to be for sale. So you go through all that stuff, and they put the save button down here, and when you hit save, it's going to say error. So I'm going to go back. Hold on a second. You have to go through everything. So I'm going to say, I'm going to be all those things. Yes, yes, yes. I've known about this for a long time. I don't have any. You have to put your samples in first before you hit save. So I've answered all my questions. I'm going to pick my donkey, which has been uploaded. Here he is. Click that, it goes gray. And now I'm going to hit save. And I'm hoping I can not have, I'm not going to pay for it. Brings you to, I'm ready to check out. You can view a preview. This is my entry. Here's all my information. There's my donkey. If you click on it, you want to make sure your picture looks good. Close. And then I'm ready to check out. Once you say I'm ready to check out, here's your checkout and decide what you want to do. You can donate $5 to, offset. Once you click on this, once you get to the next screen, I'm pretty sure you can put your coupon code in. Now, this is a whole lot of information. If you've been through it once, it's fairly simple once you get all your photographed, uploaded, et cetera, et cetera. Over here is Cafe Help. I'm going to click on this. And I'd have to say, their system really works well. So uploading media. Click on anything that you want help with. List of acceptable uploads. It gives you all the stats right here. And then if you don't understand that, there's a video in each section. You can click on the video and it step-by-step walks through what I just did. The other thing that I can show you, let me move this down a little bit, is contact us. They are very responsive from the administrative side or from the artist side. Here's their hours, Mountain Time, and their phone number. And honestly, if you call them, they will call you back, which is pretty amazing in this day and age. So I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? That's a lot of information if you've never done it before.
There's a couple questions here. One, you have a compliment from Mr. DeHasia saying wonderful presentation, but also we don't know. The question is the coupon code. I think, isn't that on our website?
You know what? Is Jim Stanford here?
Jim is there. So Jim, unmute and tell us.
Yeah, I'm here.
Where's the coupon code?
There was an email that went out to all BWS members a few days ago with the coupon code.
Okay. We
And
might
if
have
somebody,
that out
if
like
somebody missed it, just go to the website and send an email to the exhibit email and I'll get you the coupon code.
Thank you so much. And then the other question I think I can answer is, do we need to give the dimensions of the painting after you put it in the mat? Or is it okay to give the dimensions before it's matted? And I know the answer.
Okay, fire away.
The answer is, it is the inside of the mat.
Correct. Because somebody could put a 2.5 inch mat on either side. Somebody could put a 2-inch mat. So it's painting, usually a painting. Okay, I will, and I happen to know that the technical support from BWS Jim is very reliable and you can ask him questions. He's probably going to have a nervous breakdown when I say that. All right, I am going back to share my screen one more time. I want to put up, I didn't save this. So if all of this, and I don't get paid by these people, if all of this is really overwhelming, you can feed 2 birds with 1 scone. If this is the easiest way, and you can see this archival arts? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So they can scan if you want to pay and you want somebody else to do all this for you, you bring your painting in, and if you don't know about these people, they have very good customer support. You can you have to make an appointment and go in and tell them what you want. They will scan and do everything for you, and they have pricing right here. It's not cheap, but you get the scan. Here's your price calculator. You can put in the dimensions of your painting. Say your painting's 9 by 12 or 10 by 12 because it has to be bigger than 10 inches on the shortest side. And then go down and look at what you want. So price for borderless watercolor print is $16.26. So if you have the best painting you've ever done, you want it scanned so it's easy to upload. They'll actually have the scan for you, easy to upload into the application. You can get prints made. You can give them all to your friends. And so it's a really good site. The other thing that I would say about them is there is a, let me go back to this. Oops, sorry. And here's all the information about what you need to do. Maryland Art Gallery, let me see, customer gallery login. My works. If you have your paintings scanned here, they show up in this portfolio. So they'll sell them for you. I don't do that. But say you want this painting and you want to size it because they've scanned it and it's a raw scan. It's huge, which means they can take your painting and blow it up to a billboard if you want. But download, and here you go. It's in pixels or inches. You put in 1200 by 1600, download, and that downloads a high resolution, color corrected, white balanced, sized picture ready to go. So it depends on if you want to pay somebody. I mean, they do an amazing job. That's all on their site and it's ready to roll.
Okay, so there are a couple of comments. One is other people have used Archival and really like it. One question is scanning better than taking a picture? You know, I know when you take a photograph, they can easily adjust the color. Can they do that in scanning as well?
Oh, absolutely. So if you go in to them, you take your painting in, they give you they measure it, give you the price of what it is. You don't have to have prints made. They will scan it and you'll have the scan and you have access, as you can see, you have access to that scan. They keep it on file. So if somebody sees your painting, I'm going to go through this whole spiel. Somebody sees your painting, you can order that scan. All you do is call them up. And I think through the site, you can probably just do it on the site, order as many prints, any size you want. What was the question again?
This is scanning, which is better, scanning or taking a photo?
So if they scan, they have a specialized camera, a very expensive camera that scans at really high resolution. And then they color correct in Photoshop, and then you go in and you proof that. So you take your painting and put it next to the proof, and if you don't like it, they tweak it, and they'll tweak it while you're standing there. So you can say, and don't say add red, say this area is a little too red, and then they know how to adjust that. So when you walk out, I almost sold my original one time because I got 2 prints in the original and they were in the same bag. They looked identical, and you can have it printed on watercolor paper. So was one better than the other? If you're not going to make prints and you're applying to a bunch of shows, it's just, I mean, I haven't had problems with my camera. It depends on, and I've done it a whole bunch of times. So,
Yeah. So,
and I can see people, you know, I used to have a scanner where I worked, so I could scan my own stuff. If that's the case and you have a scanner, you can scan it yourself. I just happen to think they do a really nice job. And I have ordered prints from them. They used to do cards. I used to get cards, but they don't do that anymore.
and also, I saw that it was a 410 number. I don't know where they're located.
They are right off of 95, and I think it's Arbutus. It's close to Arbutus if it's not in Arbutus.
Okay, and so, but you have to go there, so people that are from out of town,
Yes.
okay.
And I know one of my students had, I'm pretty sure they shipped her stuff back to her. But if, you know, and you can find a printer in your area that could possibly do the same thing. I just know they're known for scanning artwork, specifically, you know, fine artwork, so.
And someone asked, is it better to scan themselves or take a photo? I imagine you just have to kind of play with it, depending on
Right.
how good your scanner is and how good your,
Correct.
yeah, okay,
And how, you know, how your color looks.
right. Okay.
I have one more thing to share, and unless you just want to continue to ask questions. I'm going to share one more thing.
Okay.
Share my desktop again. Calculator. Airfloat. If you are going to start shipping, this company, and I put this website on the email that you will get, these strong boxes are really nice, and this is what you're going to be asked to ship in, or they charge you more money. So if you haven't seen one of these boxes, it goes by size. You can put the painting size right here, and then say you have a 22. These are not cheap. 22 by 15 by 1 filter. It will tell you what size box you need. And the way they work, and there's a little video, there's always a video. There's 3 layers of foam, and it's a cardboard, and you can order puncture proof. So the top, these egg crate, they're loose in there, and then there's this thick pad in the middle. You literally lay your painting on that, trace around it, cut, it's perforated. You can rip the center out, sit your painting in that hole. I don't know if they have a picture. Yeah, here it is. Sit your painting in the hole, lay the cover back on, and ship it. I've used these multiple times. I mean, they are cardboard, so they're going to get destroyed eventually. I've never had a painting ruined, and you're going to get paid. Some people won't, shows won't accept your painting unless it's in one of these boxes. So when you think about whether you want to apply to out-of-state shows, think about the cost. You're going to have to invest in a box, and you can reuse these. Like if you put a different size painting in here, I had sort of Frankensteined these together so that it fits. And some of them have taken 5 or 6 trips, and they don't look so good, but they work. So this website is on there too. That's something to consider.
Do we still have a discount code for Airfloat? I know we did it one time.
Yes, so that's the other thing. There is a discount code for it. I think on our site, but almost on every site, and it's usually 20%, which, you know, if you're buying a huge one of these boxes, it is. Some of them have handles, some of them don't. You can get it lined or unlined, and I've shared them with other people. So, you know, if you're gonna make a career out of this, buy one. It'll pay off. I think that's kind of all I have to say about that. I will answer questions, and I can't think of anything else. That's kind of the long and short. The email that will be sent out has a bunch of links on it, so you can look through those. If you look on any society, Watercolor Society page, sometimes you have to be a member to get coupon codes, but there are a bunch on there, like free samples of paint and free samples of paper, coupon code for those strong boxes, because that's kind of like the top brand. You can buy them through Amazon and through Uline, and there's a couple other places. If you look up Strong Box or Art Shipping Box, they're pretty much the same price from what I've found. Uline will make custom ones, so depends on what size you're looking for. But look on Baltimore Watercolor Society site, and there's tons of information on there. Delaware has amazing information on there. There's, you know, everywhere.
Karen, yeah, Karen Norman just posted a website, but I'm not sure what it is. So if you could unmute yourself and tell us what it's for.
Yes, actually, it was me, her husband. It's
Oh,
graphic.
hi, how are you?
It's called Graphic Converter, and it's on the Mac, and it's very reasonable. It's much easier to use than Photoshop, and it's like $39 maybe. You can get it downloaded for free and use it like for 30 days and see how you like it. But it's amazing for conversion to any format from any format, but I use it like for changing resolution, like to 300, whatever, and all of the changes of sizes. There's kind of a simple for changing the color, the brightness of the painting. So yeah.
Great, thank you, and good to see you.
It's
Janet Arsenault has said that Imagination Center in Frederick is another really good place.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I've used them, it's been a while. The other site is the National Watercolor Society site. Linda Dahl made a extensive list of instructions using Photoshop Elements, and I know a lot of people have Elements, not the full version of Photoshop, but Elements. And if you know Elements, jump on it. But again, for 30, what did you say yours was? $39. $39 is decent. And Microsoft Paint, I'm pretty sure, is free. And Preview on a Mac is free. So, and your phone, I mean, you've already paid for your phone if you want to use
Right.
that. And if you look on the Macintosh site, or just search YouTube on how to take a picture with your phone, it's flooded. Just, you got to sort through junk.
And GIMP has been suggested. Don't know if that's available anymore. I know some people have said it's no good, but
What?
GIMP, G-I-M-P,
Oh, I've heard that too. I've never used that, so I don't know.
yeah. And then the app, I guess, is that Ruth Lampe, you're talking about the app that we have the link to Windows.
Yeah,
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 okay.
it's a way to connect your phone to your
Okay.
Windows computer.
Thanks. Okay, do shows ask you to provide your painting a title? The answer would be yes.
Yes.
Can you tell us again the name of the light you held up? Because I'm more.
I searched on Amazon, and it's just a Polaroid light. It came in a pair of two, and then a little box, like a shadow box, that you can put, like small sculptures and stuff. That's the point of it, so that it, gives you overall nice lighting. You could use it for a small painting, but I use it outside of the box. Trying to think if there's anything else. The cafe site, play with it, and don't wait until the last minute. I think most of the problems come when, you squeeze in, the deadline is the deadline, and you're thinking, okay, I've got to the deadline. But then you don't realize that you've got to photograph your your painting, upload it. That's when something's going to go wrong, and you're going to have a little glitch with the software.
Yeah, it was also suggested that if somebody wants to use archival, that they don't wait to the last minute either, because they get booked up.
And there's a 2-week turnaround usually. Usually they finish before that, but they tell you it's going to be 2 weeks.
Couple of questions. How do you position your lights when the painting is vertical?
Because the ones that I showed you are short, I have two like little movable end tables, and I put them on one on either side, and then I stand basically between them, slightly back, because one of the things you have to look at is if your lights are behind you, your shadow is going to get cast onto the wall. And also I have over in this studio situation, there's 2 ceiling lights and 2 skylights. So that's not a normal situation. And so it's a pretty well lit room, so I haven't had too much trouble. I also go in front of my, there's slider doors in my kitchen, and sometimes I don't need lights in there. I can just set it up on a chair vertically and then put my tripod up, and it's fine. I think what you're going to have to do, if you're going to shoot a lot of your paintings, test the areas in your house, see what has the best lighting, what the pictures turn out, and kind of, every situation is going to be different. These stand-up lights do really help, because they can add additional light to the actual daylight.
Yeah. Does the size of the painting matter as you go into more prestigious shows?
It depends, and I have seen like little 12x12s win. It's a relative thing, and actually there was a meeting before kind of a public meeting before the AWS show this year, And I sat in on that meeting, and one of the jurors was there, and she said, what would really help is if we knew the size of the paintings when we were jurying. So clearly AWS doesn't even look at the size. When the slides go up, they're all the same size projected. They have no idea what the size is when they intake them and accept them. So it's but once it gets to the show, if it's a huge painting on the wall and there's small ones next to it, good chance that people are going to go right to that bigger painting initially.
But I think about the Mid-Atlantic, watching the jurors the last few years, and I would say as many quarter sheet paintings won awards as large ones.
It's true. And if the juror is good and they're studying, they're not falling for that, the average viewer, though, would probably walk right up to the big one.
Yeah.
But you're right. If the juror goes and studies each one, quality should be the thing that is juried, and like the elements and principles of design. If you have good line work and good value changes and you follow atmospheric perspective, there's a lot of things in there, balance, dominance of color, or, a multitude of other things that should be taken into consideration.
Now this is, to me, is like the hardest question ever. How do you price your paintings?
And that is a tough one. And I've heard various theories on how this should happen. What I do, honestly, is I figure how many hours I put in. You can't be emotionally attached to your painting. Like when you first start out in the first couple, you're like, oh, I really don't want to sell that. Or I've heard that from other people. And I have felt that way. And then after you paint for a while, you're like, oh, if you want to buy it, it's all yours. But think if it's a sketchy thing that's, like an hour or 2 hours, the price should be lower. I mean, think of basically how to ballpark it is how many hours, what you consider your hourly rate. Then add on your framing. Consider how much you put in to ship it to the show, how much you're going to have to ship it back if you don't get, if it doesn't sell. The materials, the paper, if you use a 22 by 30 sheet of paper, it could be between $18 and $25. So add that into it. What else? And then if it's in a gallery, well, in a commission, if it goes into BWS, I think they take a 35% commission. So Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. So that's going to come off the top. So add all that stuff in there and add it up. So many hours I put into this, framing, shipping, if it's going to a show. If you're just going to sell it, unframed right out of your house, then it could be just, the hourly rate. If it's going into a gallery, they're going to take 50% for the most part. And don't undersell yourself. I know artists, they're like, oh, I want to get rid of this, so I'm going to sell it cheap. Well, if you sell it cheap, the next person that comes off and says, this is my painting, it's $400, and somebody will say, well, I got this one for 100 or 40 or whatever. It decreases the value of everybody's paintings.
Yeah.
So pay yourself.